Welcome everyone to another learning session. Today, we are going to start learning about Azure Cloud. But this is not the first class. We have already started learning about cloud computing, and cloud computing is the first module for Azure Fundamentals exam. So if you missed it, please do watch the recordings or attend a repeat session. So let me share the screen and get started. Okay, Azure Cloud Fundamentals. Prerequisites is cloud computing 101. And if you have not watched, you can watch the recording or you can attend the repeat sessions. We have two kinds of recordings, just for your knowledge. The actual recording of the cloud computing 101 classes, it is around 1 hour each or more than 1 hour each. So it will be in total around 2 to 2.5 hours. So how many minutes is 2 to 2.5 hours? Can some of you with a little bit of mathematical knowledge tell me? Okay, it will be 120 to 150 minutes, right? But if you don't want that in between pauses or in between discussions or doubts clearing and all those extra things, but only want to focus on content, there is a edited version of the recording combining all these 120 to 150 minutes into just 45 minutes. Especially if you are new, I would recommend you take some effort to watch or attend the regular one. But later, when you want to appear for an exam or you want to appear for a interview, you can just watch the 45 minutes one. Or you may even watch the 45 minutes one first. And if you feel like, okay, this is fast, or I need a little bit slower one, or I need more details, then you can watch the longer one. So I'll share both these recordings with you. So today we will look into components from Azure, including Azure Accounts, and then some of the tools that you have in Azure, Azure architectural components, Azure resources, and finally we have some very good and interesting questions to check your understanding of Azure Cloud. You already know all about me. Else you can watch the cloud computing 101 session to know more about me. Azure Accounts. So what happened when we create an Azure account? Okay, I want you to answer. How many of you here are coming from AWS or GCP backgrounds? In general, most of the cloud providers, when you create an account, okay, when you create an account, that account is kind of a billing representation also, or a billing boundary also. That means you create an AWS account, and when you create an AWS account, you give a credit card or debit card or some payment mechanism, and that payment mechanism will be linked to your account. So that account itself is your billing boundary. Okay, what happens in Azure? Is it going to be same? Whenever you are creating an Azure account, you will be giving a credit card. Will it be associated with that account or not? Today's session is going to be very important because whenever you are going to work in a multi-cloud environment, one thing that you get slightly confused with respect to Azure and all other clouds is your billing boundary and managing accounts together as an organization. In a cloud like AWS, if you have multiple accounts, why do you need multiple accounts? First of all, if I need different billing boundaries, I will need multiple accounts. For example, one account can be for team A and another account can be for team B. And maybe in this company, team A needs to pay through team A's credit card and team B needs to pay through team B's credit card. In general, for most of the cloud platforms like AWS or even non-cloud platforms, just SaaS software, it means it will be different accounts, right? It will be different accounts. Each account will have most of the products. In most of the products, each account will have one credit card or one payment mechanism attached to it, right? So that is how most of the cloud products and even other SaaS products work today. But Azure works slightly different. When you create an Azure account, two things happen in general, or at least one thing. The thing that always happen is Azure will create something called as a tenant. Okay, remember this. Whenever you create an account, Azure will create something called as a tenant. This will always happen. And the tenant, in general, whenever you are looking at the Azure side of things, okay, this tenant is not just specific to Azure. There are a lot of other Microsoft products also using the same tenant. Maybe that is one reason they rebranded, because Azure AD tenant gives a feeling that, okay, this tenant is only to Azure, right? Yes or no? But if you have a business email, so all the business emails that the Trains of Cloudrix team has, and even the interns have, ends at cloudrix.com. All those are actually created as Microsoft business emails. Whenever you create a Microsoft business email, what will happen? Whenever you create Microsoft business email, then also a tenant is created. And if you log into Azure Portal with the same email, again, it is the same tenant. Before knowing all these things, when I started with Azure, so in one role, I was working as a principal cloud architect, and I was working with the regular business operations within the company. And another role, I was working as head of engineering for a outside project. So outside project, which is still funded by my company. So it was called as One Inclusion. The company I was working during that time was Society General. So this is two projects. Right? For the One Inclusion, we thought we will set up everything outside. So that was also an opportunity for me to try out all the Azure Cloud services, features, because whenever you are doing something within an organization, you have limitations. You have to go through different process to enable each and every service that you want to use in Azure Cloud. But here, you don't have that limitation. And then first thing was creating an email. And later, when I logged into Azure Portal for first time, my email was already configured there. So initially, before that, I was working with AWS Cloud, right? So I didn't had this knowledge of Azure AD tenant being a tenant for all the Microsoft SaaS products. I thought it is only limited to Azure. So later, I came to know that, okay, this tenant called Azure AD tenant is not something that is specific to Azure. They just call it as Azure AD tenant because Azure is their cloud product. Somehow, that naming was not perfect, because think about it. At least some of you have thought, right? Azure AD tenant is identity and access management thing for Azure. Yes or no? Yes, most of you have said yes. No, no. So that means I am not alone. So maybe Azure name was confusing. So Microsoft decided, okay, people are getting confused. Let us make it a Microsoft thing rather than a Azure thing. So now it is called as Microsoft Entra tenant, and they are free to use it with Azure or your Office, business Office, email, or whatever SaaS products. Let us call it as a tenant. Okay, whatever prefix, let us avoid for now. So whenever you are creating an Azure account, the first thing that gets created is a tenant. Okay, so most of you would have created, or at least some of you would have created a free tier account, right? And when you create a free tier account, you also have to provide your credit card or debit card details. But does it have a one-to-one relationship with your tenant? No. Along with that tenant, if you are creating a free tier account, Microsoft will also create a free tier subscription. Okay, so here comes the interesting part. So when it comes to Azure, your credit card information is actually part of something called as a subscription. If you are confused, you just let me know. And experienced people will feel like, okay, I am talking too much. These are simple things. You don't need much explanation. But there are few very new people to Azure Cloud. For them, I am explaining in bit more detail. Okay, whenever you are creating an Azure Cloud account, actually a tenant is created, and also a subscription is created. So earlier I said, right, minimum a tenant is created. So sometimes if you are not eligible for a free tier account, that a free tier subscription will not be created. So only the tenant will be created. Or if you are not planning to create a free tier account, then also no subscription will be created, only tenant will be created. And when you log into such a tenant, it will show you that, okay, create a subscription before you can start using Azure Resources. Clear until now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this subscription, whatever I mentioned, right? So it has two functions. One, as we mentioned, it is a billing boundary. Your credit card or other payment mechanism is associated with it. So we'll see there are other payment mechanisms also, like enterprise subscription or CSP. So CSP is a reseller. Okay, it is a CSP is a Microsoft partner or reseller who can give you Azure Cloud. So one difference is if you are directly purchasing from Microsoft website, you will have to pay the actual prices listed. And if you are purchasing through a CSP, most probably you will get additional discounts. And also, if you are purchasing through a CSP, you will be paying them. And that CSP will be having additional payment mechanisms, maybe a bank transfer or credit card or some other means of payment. Okay, that CSP will have that. And Trains or Training Solutions, the parent company for CloudRix, is a Microsoft CSP partner. Okay, so whenever you are creating a Microsoft account, a tenant is created, and associated with that tenant, you can create multiple subscriptions. And each of those subscriptions will have their own payment mechanism. Billing boundary is one of the functionality of a subscription, and also you can use it as a permissions boundary, meaning you can give access to somebody to a subscription, and they will be only able to access things within that subscription. And in Azure, if you want to work with Azure resources, what are Azure resources? Any resources on a cloud that you want to manage, right? The resources such as virtual machines or storage or whatever other services that Azure provides. We learned the cloud computing basics or fundamental session, right? Cloud provides many things such as storage or networking, compute, and along with that, it will give IT services and all. All those things will be called in general as resources. And to work with those resources, you need a subscription. Okay, so subscription is similar to an account in most of the other cloud providers. So in AWS, an account itself is the subscription equivalent. And in AWS, how do you manage multiple accounts in an organization? You manage it using a service called as AWS Organization Service. Okay, I'll be talking about the AWS organizations in the upcoming AWS Tech series. But in Azure, that account equivalent is a subscription. Once you see subscription in portal, it will be a little more clear. So basically, your credit card information is associated with it. And all the multiple subscriptions, similar to AWS organizations, multiple subscriptions for an organization is combined together using the tenant. So tell me, your organization's email address or the domain name. So domain name can be part of only one place, right? So that domain name, where it will be? Will it be at the subscription level or will it be at the tenant level? An organization in general will have only one tenant, and it can have multiple subscriptions based on different departments needing to pay separately or have a separation of management, because subscription is not just a billing boundary, right? It is also a security boundary. So if you need a complete segregation of services, then you can use multiple subscriptions. But in an organization, will you have multiple domain names? No, right? Your organization, irrespective of whatever department you are, you will all have the same email domain. For example, all the employees of Trainso, irrespective of where they are, will have at trainso.com. All the employees of CloudRix or the Cloudrix instance, irrespective of what they are working on, what department they are working on, they will all have the extension at cloudrix.com. So your domain name comes at the tenant level. Clear? Anything that is organization specific comes at a tenant level, and a subscription is just a billing boundary and a permissions boundary within an organization. An organization can have multiple subscriptions. Clear? So what happens when we create an Azure account? When we create an Azure account, first a Microsoft Entra tenant, previously Azure AD tenant is created, and the user is made a member of the global administrator role. So we'll learn about roles in upcoming slides. Just a quick intro to roles. What do you mean by RBAC? Not rollback. Okay. Role-based access control. Managing roles and giving different levels of access to those roles, and people assuming those roles are called as role-based access control. So a general question not related to whatever we are learning here, just for your general knowledge. Have you heard about ABAC? Okay, you have to be updated about things that is happening, right? So it is called attribute-based access control. Anyway, we are not going to discuss it today. Okay, so coming back, role-based access control is RBAC. There are two sets of roles within Azure Cloud. One is Azure AD roles, now called as Microsoft Entra ID roles. These roles include a global administrator role. They are used to manage your Azure users or managing users and everything related to users, groups, and all those things within your Active Directory tenant. There is also one more role, generally referred to as both of these are technically RBAC roles. One generally referred to as RBAC roles, which are the roles that are associated with your subscription, which are the roles that are used to manage your Azure resources. And those roles include owner, contributor, and maybe a virtual machine contributor. Lot of similar roles are there. So there are two sets of roles, one for your tenant or directory and one for your Azure resources. For tenant, the most powerful role is a global administrator role. And for managing Azure resources, the most powerful role is owner. So we'll see about them later. We will see in the portal also. So coming back, Microsoft Entra ID, previously Azure Active Directory or Azure AD, is an identity and access management service from Microsoft. Entra tenant is an instance of Azure AD service for our organization, and it provides identity and access management capabilities to applications and resources used by your organization. An organization generally has one Microsoft Entra tenant with all of its employees, their groups, any custom domain names that the company owns, etc. There are two kinds of tenants. Let us quickly go to the portal to understand it better. So now, if you go to manage tenants, and if you click on create, you see that you get two options. One is a Microsoft Entra ID, which was previously called as Microsoft Azure AD. And you also have Azure AD B2C. I'm not sure whether they will be renaming it to Microsoft Entra something. But for now, let us call it as Azure AD B2C itself. And one of the reasons I think why this is not renamed is because Azure Active Directory, now Microsoft Entra ID, is it only for Azure or for other Microsoft products also? It is for multiple products, right? Maybe that is the reason they named it as Entra ID. But Azure AD B2C, if you look at a hierarchy, you have a tenant, and inside that tenant, multiple subscriptions will be associated with that tenant. So it is not actually a hierarchy, but we can imagine it as a hierarchy. One tenant, and inside that tenant, multiple subscriptions. And this Azure AD B2C is a very specific type of tenant that is created again under a subscription. So that means it can be considered within the Azure environment itself. Maybe that is why it is not changed. Anyway, let us not speculate. So let us learn what they are. If you look into Microsoft Entra ID and if you click into next configuration, it will ask for organization name. So that means a tenant is generally representing an organization and the initial domain name. So until you give a custom domain name like cloudrix.com or trainso.com, you can give a initial domain name and the initial location. Irrespective of whatever you give here, you can use resources in any of the allowed locations. Okay, so, but if you go back and select Azure AD B2C, it will ask the regular questions, organization name, initial domain name, location, but it will also ask for the subscription. And within that subscription, it will also ask for something called as resource group. Subscription, resource group, management group. You'll learn all these things, so don't worry. But at least you understood the difference between these two things, right? One is Microsoft Entra ID, previously your Azure Active Directory, which may be shared across multiple Microsoft SaaS products, including Azure, and Azure AD B2C, which is something that is created within your Azure subscription. Clear until now? So now tell me, since nobody has any doubt, everybody is clear. So why do you need two kinds of tenants here? What is the use case? One, you already know, to manage employees within your organization. If your organization has multiple SaaS products, all of them will be sharing the same tenant, so that your business email will be hardened at cloudrix.com, and within your Azure also, it will be hardened at cloudrix.com. But what is the use of Azure AD B2C? What is B2C? Have you heard about these terms B2B and B2C? What is B2B? It is a business to business, and B2C, business to consumer. So Azure AD B2C is generally used for managing your end users. For example, consider Trainso. So Trainso is developing an application called a points trade. So all the students, they are joining that a points trade application. And by attending sessions, you get some points. By doing some other activities, you get some points, and then you can redeem those points. So those students or those customers will be part of a Azure AD B2C tenant. And those engineers who is actually responsible for building this application, they will be part of the Microsoft Entra ID or Azure Active Directory. Clear the difference between both of these? You can even click on help me choose and external facing applications. Okay, so you can read all these things later also, but have you understood the basic difference between these two? Yes or no, so that we can proceed. Okay, so one quick question. We signed up for Azure service and Microsoft created a tenant and made us a global administrator for that tenant. Can we start creating Azure resources now? Yes or no? I want everybody who is attending this session to answer yes or no, based on your understanding. We signed up for Azure service and Microsoft created a tenant and made us a global administrator for that tenant. Can we start creating Azure resources now? I've got loads of yeses. And all these yes people said that you are clear about tenant subscription. Answer is no. Why? We are not ready yet. To manage resources, you need a subscription. So sometimes if you are eligible for a free tier, a subscription will be created automatically. And then the question will also mention that. Here question says only a tenant is created. Global administrator can create a subscription, can assign roles in a subscription, but to actually manage Azure resources, you need an Azure RBAC role, right? What were the examples for RBAC roles I mentioned? Global administrator was a Entra ID role or Azure ID role, right? So with this role, you cannot manage Azure resources, but you can manage users in your Azure account. To manage Azure resources, I mentioned about one more role, right? RBAC role. Does anybody remember any of the role names I mentioned there? RBAC roles I mentioned few, right? Owner, contributor. How many of you have heard about these roles? Owner, contributor, virtual machine contributor, all these roles. At least if you have worked with Azure, you would have heard about it. If you are new to Azure, don't worry. We'll have sessions about it. But those are the roles that are needed to manage your Azure resources. One set of roles, like global administrator, is needed to manage your Azure users. And one set of roles, like owner, contributor, and all, required to manage your Azure resources. Azure subscription has a billing boundary. An Azure subscription provides a billing boundary. Invoices and the billing of Azure resource usage are done to your Azure subscriptions. And hence, you cannot use Azure resources without a subscription. Different subscriptions can have different payment mechanism, such as credit card, offline through CSP, etc. Hope you understand what CSP is. Subscriptions can also act as a permissions boundary for resources, as we will see later. And examples for subscriptions: dev subscription, prod subscription, test subscription. So people can create subscriptions for multiple reasons. In the AWS world, these days people create different accounts for dev, prod, test, etc. In Azure, you just have to create multiple subscriptions. Let me go to the portal itself and show you. So rather than from the screenshot, yes. So you can just search for subscription. I've already searched before, so it will come up. So I have two subscriptions. One is pay as you go dev test subscription, and one is Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. My free tier got expired long time back, long time back, and I'm not eligible. So if I try to add a subscription, first it will check for your offer eligibility. So when you create a subscription, Microsoft will look for something called as offers, either a free tier offer or some other offer. It will check for eligibility, but I am not eligible. So you are not eligible for this offer. And pay as you go is the regular offer. Okay, pay as you go is the regular offer where you pay for whatever services you use. That is a normal offer. And Azure for Students is an offer. If you are a student with a university email and all, you can go with the student offer. And there are also a lot of other offers here. Azure Pass sponsorship, Visual Studio Enterprise subscription. Basically, if you are purchasing Visual Studio, Visual Studio has two subscriptions. One is a professional subscription, and one is enterprise. And with the professional, I believe you get $50 per month to experiment or try out things in Azure. And enterprise comes with around $150 per month. Pay as you go, you know, right? Whatever you use, you pay. And pay as you go dev test is a very special subscription where you will not be charged for the licensing fee for some of the Microsoft products. And in response, you are telling Microsoft that I will be using this subscription only for development or testing. And you cannot run these services continuously like in a production. When you consider a Microsoft product, a Windows virtual machine, what do you think is the cost of Microsoft Windows license? And what is the cost of the actual running cost of that virtual machine? Whatever you are going to give. So how much of that total cost will be licensing cost? Will it be 5? Will it be 10%? Will it be 20%? Will it be 30%? Will it be 40%? What do you think? Just make some guesses, then only you will learn. If you really want to learn and master Azure Cloud, you have to be participating. Okay, so 5%. Okay, now it has become 10. It's like an auction now. Okay, whatever you think, just mention. Okay, now it has become 20. Okay, it is going up. Okay, Microsoft has a product called as a pricing calculator. Using this pricing calculator, you can predict how much expense you will incur if you use a particular service. Let us go to virtual machines. Okay, yeah, virtual machine. So here, if you see, what is the cost now? 137, right? So let me go with a little bit bigger one. Okay. Okay, it is 192 now. This is OS is Windows, right? So if I change from Windows to Linux, what will happen? It is 135. Okay, now it is a 270. Again, if I move from Linux to Windows, it is 385. And if you click on Azure Hybrid Benefit, then it becomes 270. Or if you come down and click on this show dev test pricing, then also it will become 270. So that 270 and 385. Can somebody quickly use a calculator and let me know the percentage? So just say 270 by 385 into 100. How much is it? 70. So that means 30% of the cost here is licensing cost. It goes to Microsoft, right? So they will tell that, okay, in this subscription, if you confirm me that, okay, you will only use for dev or testing. Anyway, the money comes to me only. I don't want it. But can other cloud providers do the same? Can they give discounts on Microsoft licensing? Yes or no? Based on my knowledge, it is no. And what is this hybrid benefit? So if you have a compatible license on premises, so this is something that Microsoft is doing to bring their on premises customers to cloud. So if they have a compatible on premise license, they don't have to pay the license. So and then savings plan and reserved instances and all we will see later. So if you go with 1 year savings plan or 3 year savings plan, or even 1 year reserved instance or 3 year reserved instance, you can save more. With 3 year reserved instance, you can save up to 69% of the total amount. By default, if you do not click on this dev test, it will be your pay as you go. And if you go with a CSP, most probably it will be lesser than whatever you see here. Let us get back to our presentation. Okay, so offers we saw. I hope you are clear about offers by now. And free account, you just have to search for Azure free account in Google, and it will take you to this page. Some of the important things to remember is that a free account does not mean everything is free. Okay, for the first month, Azure will give you $200 credit. And with that $200 credit, you can do whatever you want until that credit is over. That is the first thing to remember. Second thing, so what will happen when the $200 credit is over? Will Azure automatically starts charging you? Yes or no? Okay, answer is no. Azure will not charge you because you have only taken a free tier account. Right. Whenever you are creating a free tier account cannot be charged. This credit card information, whatever you are giving, is only used for verification purposes. And after that, if you need to, if you allow Azure to charge you, then you have to manually click and say, okay, upgrade my account to a pay as you go subscription. So this credit is only for 1 month, right? So this credit is only for 1 month. So if you pass that 30 days, even if you have used only $50 and $150 is left, and 30 days is over, it is the same process. Your subscription will stop working, and you have to upgrade to a pay as you go to continue using. And you have only reached 15 days, and your subscription amount, your credit is over, then also you have to do the same, upgrade to pay as you go to continue. Clear until this point? And then you might ask, okay, why then Azure Cloud is selling 1 year free tier account? For the 1 year, and this concept is similar with most cloud providers, there will be some services in some configuration up to some limits, it will be free. And there will be some services that are always free also. For example, if you see Azure services that are free for enrollments, you can see a lot of examples here. Let me go back to our website itself and show you. So now website, right? I just search for Azure free tier. You can click on free services and you can see what are the current free tier limits. Okay, I'll participate later, Mr. Ashur. Okay, so you can see that, okay, 12 months, 750 hours each of B1S, B2S. So these certain type of instances are free. It is not like everything is free. So if you are using these type of instances, it is free. One quick question. How many hours are there? What is the maximum number of hours that you can have in a month? Okay, so what is the maximum number of days in a month? 31. And 31 into 24, right? Maximum is 744. Okay, and you get 750 hours. So that means that if you are using one instance, you can use freely for the whole month. And if you are using two instances, you can use it for half of the month. And if you are having running 4 instances together, you can run it for quarter of the month. Clear? And every service will have some free tier limits. You can read all about. So always free services, even after 12 months, it will be free. So clear about free tier? Yes or no? I created a new free tier account and got 200 credits for 30 days. The 30 days got over, but I have $50 credit left. What will happen? Free credit does not carry over, right? You also need to manually upgrade to the pay as you go subscription, and until then you won't be charged, and until then you cannot use the services also. After I upgrade to pay as you subscription, in the second month, will I be charged for every usage thereafter? It is a tricky question for some people. Maybe some people know the answer. So tell me, after I upgrade to pay as you go subscription in the second month, will I be charged for every usage thereafter? So if you are using within the free tier limits, you will not be charged. If you are using beyond the free tier limits or using a service with a type that is not within the free tier limit, you will be charged. Clear? Okay, tenant and subscription summary. All Azure subscriptions have a trust relationship with a tenant or directory. The subscriptions rely on their trusted tenant to authenticate and authorize security principles and devices. Subscriptions can only trust a single tenant, while one tenant can be trusted by multiple subscriptions within an account. It means you can associate multiple subscriptions with your tenant. So imagine it like a hierarchy. We can move subscriptions from one tenant to another using the change directory option in the subscriptions page. How can I start participating in Azure Fundamentals hands-on for free without an Azure account? Anybody want to know? So you have Microsoft Azure sandboxes where you can practice. Okay, for fundamentals, there is a sandbox. You can just search for Azure Cloud. So Microsoft Learn Sandbox for Azure lets you perform a specific Azure task for free without an Azure account. You just need a Microsoft account only. Or if you need to save your work, repurpose it for later use, or extend it outside the boundaries of the given training exercise, you may run the lab in your own subscription if you prefer. So we have an exercise for exploring sandbox and working with different ways to connect with Azure. So before going to exercise 1, let us explore the tools for interacting with Azure. There are primarily 4 ways in which you can interact with Azure: Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure Cloud Shell, and command line interface. Azure Portal, we have seen it in our demo. It is the web interface. Just type portal.azure.com and then you should be taken to that web interface that we saw in our demos, right? And if you are familiar with the PowerShell tool, then you can connect to Azure from PowerShell. Azure PowerShell is a collection of modules for managing Azure resources from PowerShell. We can install a PowerShell on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and then we can install the PowerShell module from within PowerShell. Just search in Google and then you should get these steps. And once you configure Azure PowerShell, we can run connect AC account to connect to our account. But we will soon see a way to work without installing anything on our local machine. Command line interface. People coming from a Linux background mostly prefer Bash or the command line form of interacting with Azure. The Azure command line interface or Azure CLI is a set of commands used to create and manage Azure resources. The Azure CLI is available to install in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux environments. It can also be run in a Docker container and Azure Cloud Shell. We can install and configure Azure CLI on command prompt on Windows and terminal on Mac or Linux. You can do a simple search in Google to find the steps to install Azure CLI. But again, for running CLI options also, Azure provides a way that doesn't require anything to be installed on your local machine. Azure Cloud Shell. Azure Cloud Shell is a browser-based shell that is hosted in the cloud and accessible from virtually anywhere. We can click on the Cloud Shell icon to open the Cloud Shell and then select either PowerShell or Bash to work on Cloud Shell. So if you see here, so here there is a icon, right? Once you click on it, that is Cloud Shell. It will ask you to create a storage and select a subscription. Let me select my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription and create storage. While it is creating, and I have given the lab link in the PPT, right? So if you go to the link, just sign in to activate sandbox. Okay, and now it will tell, okay, verifying permissions, this thing, that thing, and all, and 100% finishing, preparing invitation, and review permissions. Okay, so accept, and again verification and all. But for fundamentals, this is very cool, right? You don't need an Azure account for practicing fundamentals. Most of the things you can do here. But when it comes to next level, AZ 104 and all, I don't think sandboxes like this are there. And those who are formally doing the 104 course with the Trainso will provide a subscription to you. You can just check with your course coordinator and they will help you with that. Okay, sandbox activated, time remaining 59 minutes, and it is signing me into an Azure account. Okay, while it is signing me in, let me check my Cloud Shell. Okay, Cloud Shell is ready. So now it is a PowerShell mode. So if I was using PowerShell on my local machine, I can type the same commands here. And if I prefer using a CLI, then you can switch to Bash and I can type those commands here. So the advantage here is that you don't need to install anything. You can work with PowerShell or you can work with your CLI commands just from the browser itself. Your sandbox, and you can practice the same here also. Sandbox exercise 1, explore the learn sandbox. You need to activate the sandbox. You can use PowerShell, then shift to Bash, then shift to Azure Interactive mode, and also navigate the portal. I've given the link in this PPT here, but I will also show you how to reach the sandbox in case if you don't have access to the link. Just search for AZ900 in Google. Go to the learn.microsoft.com page for the same. You can read all about the certification here, then scroll down. Within the self-paced learning section, you have different Azure paths. Learning path 1 is mostly theoretical. It does not have any labs. Go inside learning path 2, scroll down and find exercises. In this topic, there are 2 exercises. One, explore the learn sandbox that we should do now. And later, you also have an exercise to create an Azure resource. So once you go into this exercise, you will get an option similar to what you see here with a button activate sandbox. You should have already logged in with your Microsoft account. It is just an email. And then you can click on activate sandbox. It will verify permissions, create necessary resource groups, assign necessary roles, create necessary storage account, create the necessary file shares, and finally the sandbox is activated. Do practice every sandbox labs and do share updates or screenshots in our study group. Azure architectural components. In the session Cloud Computing 101, we had briefly learned about data centers and how they are related to cloud, right? Today, we will extend that knowledge and see how Azure manages its data centers using the architectural components such as geographies, regions, availability zones, availability sets, etc. Let us start with geographies. Geographies are discrete markets that preserve data residency and compliance boundaries. Examples include United States, India, etc. Geographies thus allow customers with specific data residency and compliance needs to keep their data and applications in proximity. For example, some countries may require that data of their citizens stay within that country itself. Geographies generally represent such compliance boundaries. Geographies typically contain 2 or more regions. So what are these regions? Regions are made up of 1 or more data centers in close proximity within a geography. Regions provide help in reducing customer latency. Tell me if you attended the Cloud Computing 101 session, which is better, low latency or high latency? Low latency, right? And latency is the time to get response for our request. So if the requester is closer to the server, latency will be lesser, right? Therefore, we can reduce latency by deploying resources to the regions that are closer to the customer. Regions also preserve data residency with a comprehensive compliance offering. Regions are within geographies and isn't spread across geographies. Therefore, regions are within the compliance boundaries. For example, if India say that data of its citizens need to stay within India, we can deploy our resources to regions within the India geography. These are some of the examples of regions. The geography United States currently has the regions Central US, East US, East US 2, East US 3, North Central US, South Central US, West Central US, West US, West US 2, and West US 3. The geography India currently has the regions Central India, India South Central, South India. Recommended versus other regions. When you select a region in Azure Portal, Azure categorizes them as recommended and other. Before creating a resource such as virtual machine in Azure, you need to select a region. And when you try to select a region, Azure categorizes those regions as recommended and other. Recommended regions support the broadest set of Azure products and will provide long-term capacity growth. For example, there is high probability that features such as availability zones will be present in a recommended region compared to an other region. We may, however, choose the other regions when we really need to target a particular geographic area. For example, if there is a compliance requirement to keep data in a geography and there are only other regions available in that geography, we will have to go with other regions, right? These are some of the current recommended and other regions I can see from the portal. I will show this quickly when we discuss about Azure Resources and creation of virtual machines. Region pairs. Region pair is a set of two regions defined by Azure, and automatic replication of some Azure services happen between these regions. Regions in a region pair generally reside within the same geography except for Brazil, South, and Singapore. Having a region and its region pair within the same geography can help us with any data residency compliance laws. There is generally 300 miles of separation between regions in a region pair. This reduces the risk of data center getting affected by things such as natural calamities. Azure also provides prioritized region recovery in the event of outage for at least one region in the pair. Updates are also rolled out sequentially across regions in a pair to minimize downtime. So for example, here you can see that East US and West US are a region pair. So Azure will not roll out an update to both East US and West US at the same time. It will first do it to one of these and then it will do to the other one. Sovereign regions. Sovereign regions are instances of Azure that are isolated from the main instance of Azure. We may need to use a sovereign region for compliance or legal purposes. Examples include Azure Government, Azure China. Azure Government refers to a separate instance of Azure for the US government deployments. Azure Government is physically isolated from non-US government deployments. It meets the security and compliance needs of US federal agencies, state and local governments, and their solution providers. These data centers are operated by screened US personnel and include additional compliance certifications. Azure China features physically separated instances of Azure Cloud services operated by 21 ViaNet to ensure compliance by making all data stay within China. Microsoft is China's first foreign public cloud service provider in compliance with government regulations. Availability zones. An availability zone is a grouping of one or more data centers within a region to provide protection against downtime due to data center failure and ensure resiliency. Data centers in each availability zone is equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking infrastructure. Azure availability zones are connected by high-performance network with a round-trip latency of less than 2 milliseconds. They help data stay in sync. A minimum of 3 availability zones are present in all availability zone-enabled regions. Please note that all regions may not support availability zones. Availability zones are designed so that if one zone is affected, regional services, capacity, and high availability are supported by the remaining 2 zones. Let me ask you a question to check your understanding of availability zones based on what you had learned from the Cloud Computing 101 session. Availability zones are primarily responsible for which of the below? A. Fault tolerance. B. Disaster recovery. A. Fault tolerance. As we had learned in the Cloud Computing 101 session, fault tolerance is continuing to work in case of a failure, while disaster recovery is failing but recovering as soon as possible. We had also learned fault tolerance generally happens within a region and disaster recovery generally happens across a region. If availability zone is configured within a region, data is synced in real time across the availability zones in that region that is configured, making use of the high performance network with a very low latency of lesser than 2 milliseconds. Therefore, if one availability zone is affected, other availability zones can continue to support the hosted applications or services. Availability sets. Availability sets are a logical grouping of VMs and aims to provide resiliency within a data center. Each virtual machine in the availability set is assigned an update domain and a fault domain. Update domain and fault domain are two logical groupings. During a planned maintenance, only one update domain is rebooted at a time. Having virtual machines in multiple update domain group will make sure that all virtual machines are not rebooted at the same time. Fault domains uses common set of hardware such as a rack within a data center and hence share a single point of failure. Having VMs in multiple fault domain groups will make sure it is resilient to server or rack failures. Fault domains will not help if the whole data center fail, as availability sets are within a data center. For getting protection from data center failures, we need availability zones. Availability based SLA examples from Azure. If you have a single VM with premium storage, Azure gives you 99.9% SLA. If you have two or more instances of VMs in availability sets, you get 99.95% SLA. Azure provides maintenance update guarantees and even protection from rack failures. A data center may have multiple racks of servers. For a virtual machine with availability zone, Azure provides you 99.99% SLA. In this case, you get protection from entire data center failures. Each availability zone will have at least one data center. And if you have two or more availability zones, and if one of the data center fail, it could be part of any of these availability zones. So that means one of the availability zone is gone, but we have one or more availability zone to handle the request, and hence your applications or services will continue to work. If you have configured automatic replication across regions, it can provide protection against regional failures. So fitting all things together, geographies contain regions, regions contain availability zones contain data centers, and data centers contain racks. Azure Resources. Why did we learn about cloud computing? Why did we learn about Azure accounts and how to create them? Why did we learn about the architectural concepts such as regions, availability zones, etc.? We learned all those things because we wanted to create and manage different resources on Azure Cloud. Let us now start learning the fundamentals of Azure Resources. Virtualized resources in Azure Cloud primarily include compute services, networking services, and storage services. We had learned about a computer and different parts of a computer in Cloud Computing 101, right? So those are the primary components that are virtualized. There will also be other managed services or products such as databases, analytical services, security services, migration services, etc. Azure Resource examples. Compute services in Azure include virtual machines, app services, container services, Azure Kubernetes Service, Azure Functions, Azure Virtual Desktop, etc. Azure networking services include Azure Virtual Network or VNet, Virtual Private Network Gateway or VPN, Azure Express Route, Azure DNS, etc. Azure storage services include container storage or blob storage, disk storage, Azure files, etc. There are also other managed services or products such as Azure AD, Azure SQL, Azure Migrate, Azure Databox, etc. Resource groups. A resource group is a container to manage resources as a single unit, like giving access to a group of resources. Whatever permissions given to a resource group is inherited by the resources that are part of that resource group. Some of the important properties of resource groups. Resources can exist in only one resource group at a time. Resources can be moved to different resource groups. A resource group can be created in a region and resources within it can exist in multiple regions. For example, the resource group may be created in East US, but it can have resources from West US or South India or Singapore or any other location. So why does a resource group need a region or location? A location or region for a resource group is specified mostly for storing metadata. What is metadata? Metadata is data about data. For example, what all resources are part of this resource group. Applications can utilize multiple resource groups. We had already learned about Azure subscriptions as a billing boundary, right? Azure subscriptions can also act as a permission boundary. What does it mean? We can have multiple resource groups within an Azure subscription, and we can set common permissions for those resource groups at the subscription level. And multiple subscriptions can be grouped together using a management group. Management groups group multiple Azure subscriptions, and we can set conditions or permissions that are common for all those subscriptions. We can nest management groups. That means we can have one management group inside another. That is not possible with subscriptions or resource groups. A management group tree can support up to 6 levels of depth. We can have 10,000 management groups in a single directory or a single tenant. This is a summary of access control hierarchy. Management groups contain subscriptions. Subscriptions contain resource groups. Resource groups contain resources. So you can set permissions at any of these levels. You can directly set permission at the resource level. You can set permission at the resource group level. In that case, all resources within that resource group will inherit that permission. You can set permissions at the subscription level. In that case, all resource groups within that subscription will inherit that permission. And in turn, all resources within all those resource groups will also inherit that permission. And finally, we can also set permissions at the management group level. Role-based access control or RBAC. We can set permissions for Azure resources at management group level or subscription level or resource group level or even at the resource level. And this is done through access control or IAM blade. You can click on the access control IAM blade like the one you see here, and then assign different roles to users, groups, etc. So assigning resource permissions through access control IAM is called as role-based access control or RBAC. RBAC roles examples include owner, contributor, reader, and then resource-specific permissions. An owner role has complete access to that permission boundary. It could be a resource group, or it could be a subscription, or it could be even management group. Complete permission means you can do anything and everything on that subscription or resource group or management group, and also you can give permissions to others. With a contributor role, you can do everything, but you cannot grant permissions to others. Then you have reader, which means you have read access to all the resources. Then you also have resource specific roles like ACR delete or ACR image signer, etc., etc. It is always advised to follow a least privilege policy, which means that do not give permissions that are not needed. Give only permissions that are really needed. And with RBAC, you can do that by assigning only roles specific to a resource that you need. Azure AD roles. Azure AD roles are used to manage access to users, groups, and other objects in your Azure Active Directory, while RBAC roles are used to manage access to resources. So within Azure AD, you have roles such as application administrator, application developer, global administrator, etc. We will learn more about authentication, authorization, Azure AD roles, and RBAC in identity and security sessions. The exercise 2 is all about creating an Azure resource, and that Azure resource is a virtual machine. So you may optionally watch the session Azure Virtual Machines 101 before doing that exercise. With a better knowledge of virtual machines, exercise 2 will be more fun to do. Exercise 2, complete the exercise titled Create Azure Resources from Microsoft Learn training website using Microsoft Learn Sandbox. You can follow the steps in exercise 2 from Microsoft Learn website and complete the exercise. But let me quickly show you how a virtual machine or a resource can be created. Search for virtual machine. Once you go to the virtual machine page, you can click on create and then click on Azure Virtual Machine. For creating resources in Azure, you need to first select a subscription, and then you need to select a resource group. Then you need a name for your virtual machine, and then you need to select the region. And here you can see that some of the regions come under the recommended heading and some regions come under the other heading. Then you have availability options. You can select availability zone, or you can select availability set. We haven't discussed virtual machine scale set. And if you have selected availability set, then you will have to configure fault domains and update domains. You may refer the virtual machine session for that. Then you need to select a security type. Then you need to select an image for your virtual machine. Then you need to select the VM architecture for your virtual machine. Then you need to select whether you need to run the virtual machine using Azure Spot Discount. Azure Spot Discount offers unused Azure capacity at a discounted rate versus pay-as-you-go prices. Workloads should be tolerant to infrastructure loss, as Azure may recall capacity for pay-as-you-go workloads. So basically, if somebody is not using a resource, Azure will give it to you for a much lower price. And if somebody come and ask for that resource for a higher price, Azure might take it from you and give it to that person. Then you have to select size. Then you have to select authentication type, whether it is SSH public key or password. So here we have selected a Linux operating system, right? Instead, if you had selected a Windows operating system, instead of SSH, it will be remote desktop protocol. So you can explore all these things and then create a virtual machine. Most importantly, you need to select a subscription, resource group, region, and the availability option. Availability zones or availability sets or virtual machine scale set or none. Please do the lab without fail and share the results in our study group chat. some questions to check your understanding. I created a new free tier account and got $200 credit for 30 days. The 30 days got over, but I have $50 credit left. What will happen? A, I will be charged automatically. B, I won't be charged automatically until my $50 credit is over. C, none of the above. Answer is C, none of the above. Free credit does not carry over. You also need to manually upgrade to a pay-as-you-go subscription, and until then, you won't be charged. Question 2. Can we ensure that services running on a virtual machine are available if a single data center fails by deploying the virtual machines to 2 or more availability sets? No, availability sets are within a data center. It can protect you against a rack failure, but not against a data center failure. Question 3. Can we ensure that services running on a virtual machine are available if a single data center fails by deploying the virtual machines to 2 or more availability zones? Yes, each availability zone contains 1 or more data center. If we have deployed more than one availability zone and a data center in any of those availability zones fail, there will be at least one more data center serving our request. Question 4. Can we ensure that services running on virtual machines are available if a single data center fail by deploying the virtual machines to 2 or more regions? Yes, each region will contain 1 or more data center. If we have deployed to more than one region and a data center in any of those regions fail, there will be at least one more data center serving requests. Question 5. Can you use Azure availability zones to protect Azure virtual machines from a regional failure? Answer is no. Availability zones are within a region. Hence, if that whole region fail, availability zones won't be able to protect anything. Always remember the hierarchy. Geographies contain regions, regions contain availability zones, and availability zones contain data centers. Question 6. An Azure region is a collection of A. Resource groups, B. Subscriptions, C. Data centers that are connected by low latency links, D. Data centers that are connected by high latency links. C. Data centers that are connected by low latency links. That is how they keep in sync, right? 7. Order them correctly based on hierarchy. Subscriptions, management groups, resources, resource groups. The correct hierarchy is management groups contain subscriptions, subscriptions contain resource groups, and resource groups contain resources. Okay, bye-bye for now, and see you all in the next class. Let's all learn together and grow together.